think people are going to be able to hear you breathing, Nelly. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today is another lens review. So depending on what order I upload these in, the first or second one was the 100 to 400 f4.5 GM lens. Today, this one's much lighter than the other one. This is the 70 to 200 GM2. This is the 2.8 version, not the f4. And this lens is pretty fantastic, much like the other one. The 70 to 200 focal range is very flexible. I find it's really good for portraits. I tend to shoot a lot of wildlife and outdoor stuff, but I also absolutely love dogs. I have a dog myself. She's kind of my muse in a way. I did have another one as well, and she's no longer with us, but I used to take pictures of the two of them all the time, and this was a really good lens for that. Because of that constant f2.8 aperture, it's really good at blurring out the background. It doesn't have a fantastic minimum focus distance. I would like it to be a little bit closer, but it's good enough for what I need it for. It does not do any sort of macro work really. If you want macro, you're going to have to get the f4. It has a little bit closer reproduction of macro scale on that one versus this one. But let's get a little bit into the features of the lens similar to the last one. So the front element on this, I think, is 77, so it's not too large. Shouldn't be too troublesome to find filters that are inexpensive for it if you need that. Comes with a lens hood, similar to the other one where it rotates and snaps on. This one does have a door here for being able to access any sort of filters, whether it's a graduated ND or a polarizer. You can spin it here. The door closes with a little click. Up front we have the focus ring. Then we have some of the function buttons again, which are programmable to whatever function you desire. We have the zoom ring here. It has a very short throw for the whole range. 70 to 200 isn't very big, but still it helps. This is all contained inside, so it's an internal zoom. It's very well weather sealed. I've taken this out in rain, snow a little bit, taken it to the beach. The only thing that I will say is that some sand did get into some of the parts of this lens, where every now and again if I'm spinning something, I can feel a little bit of a crunch. It doesn't affect it in terms of any other thing other than maybe someday it'll work its way in a little bit more. Other than that, it's pretty well sealed. I wouldn't really worry about this failing unless you take it into some extreme conditions. Past the zoom ring here, we have an aperture ring that has a clickable selector, so it makes little snaps whenever you change the aperture here. And then it has a lock on the other side, so whenever you twist it, it'll make these little clicks to let you know that you're changing the aperture. Or if you need to use a smoother one for video work, you can turn that click off with the switch on the other side, and then no clicks. Much like other GM lenses of this caliber, there are several selector switches here for things like autofocus and manual focus, or range limiters. There's a vibration reduction switch for the OSS on this lens, modes 1, 2, and 3. I pretty much just leave it on 1 for the most part. And this one has a adjustable lens collar. It does not click at the 90-degree stops, so you'll have to make sure you eyeball it if you want to make sure your footage or your images are perfectly squared off. And it has a removable lens foot. This is not cut for tripods. It does not have an Arca Swiss cut on it. It does have screw holes for mounting a different smaller tripod plate, which I tend to do. And then there is a little lever here that you can twist, and it'll let you remove the lens foot with a small button. Let's see here, right here, that you can press in, remove it, and it slims it down. Sometimes it's beneficial to remove that if you need to put this in a bag of some sort. As for image quality, this thing is incredibly sharp. It's probably the sharpest lens that I own, or at least on par with the 100-400. I haven't noticed any sort of softness or decreasing clarity on this thing. As I said, I've used it for portraits. If I'm shooting something a little bit more close range, it is also useful for wildlife. I've taken some early morning pictures with it. I've taken a picture of a fox very early in the morning. Because this is 2.8, it let in a lot more light that was necessary to be able to capture that and still have an appropriate shutter speed, so that was great. It's not very heavy at all. Sometimes it can feel a little bit heavy on the Sony bodies because it's longer and those are generally small. My pinky tends to hang off the bottom of the camera. Sometimes, depending on how you hold it, it may feel a little bit heavy, a little bit front heavy. But whenever you shift the zoom ring, it doesn't really change the feel of the weight in your hands. It's pretty consistent. This is a good all-rounder, I would say. A 24-70 is still probably the most common and best case scenario lens. Most use cases, I should say. A lot wider of an end, and it still has a good zoom focal range for 70, but if you have one, then I would say 70-200 is your next best bet. A bit of a telephoto reach, but not so much that you're going to be able to use this for a lot of wildlife, or if you shoot sports or something like that, you won't be able to have as much reach on a field of some sort. It does play with teleconverters pretty well, so if you don't want to actually fork out the cash for a much larger lens, you can get a teleconverter, and that'll bump it up to 400 if you get a 2x teleconverter, and then 1.4 isn't as much, so it'll keep it brighter, but I think that this lens is sharp enough that probably a 2x converter is more beneficial if you're actually trying to increase the range on this, because the 1.4 is not going to give it that much. If you can afford it, it's very expensive. As I say with everything about photography gear, that's all expensive. Nothing's cheap. It's better than the other options out there in terms of 70-200s. That's why it is priced the way that it is. It's first party gear. It doesn't have any of the limitations on it for frame rates or teleconverters or anything like that. Do what makes you happy. So that's the 70-200. Thanks for tuning in again for this video. I'll probably do some more video reviews of some other gear pieces that I have, and not just the camera equipment itself, but maybe some accessory things like tripods, bags, lighting. Thanks for watching, and go have fun in nature.